Hello lovely people, welcome to the book chat, the regular roundup of stuff I've read at some point in my past. I've got a bunch of books to talk about this week. I'm just going to crack on with it.
Doobie 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 doo. Doobie 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 Sophie Vlogs.
I'm going to kick things off with Vengeance Road by Erin Bowman. This is a western novel that is kind of exploring the Lost Dutchman gold mine sort of myth, if that's the right way to talk about it. I've never really read any westerns, so I picked this up on a whim to kind of see how I would get on with the genre. I definitely had a fun time with this. This kind of has everything that I expected it to have, and I think it did it really well. We follow Kate. Her father is murdered by this gang called like the Rose Gang, and she essentially sets off after them to seek vengeance. It turns out that her father was targeted for a reason. He might have the secret to this lost gold mine. And it sort of goes from there. I think some of the strongest bits of this were definitely like the action sequences, the fight scenes, the sort of like shoot-offs, that kind of thing. I think they worked really, really well. I also do feel like this really created that sense of place really well. Like I felt immersed in that sort of like Western sort of place setting. Kate is also a great heroine to follow. She is angry, she is determined. I found her as a central point to follow really great because she's allowed to experience all these depths of emotion and she's very driven. I just felt like I could really connect to how she was feeling, and the way that she was processing her feelings by going to quite an extreme way was quite compelling. There were some things that I didn't love super much about this. A lot of this is like journeying because she is journeying to find her father's killers. She ends up journeying to try and find this mine. There's lots of like twists and turns and that kind of thing. So I had a perfectly fun time. I wasn't really invested in the romance in this book because essentially the love interest in this does some stupid things that I felt like he got let off a bit for. So I found that a bit hard to root for. But I can't deny that I got absolutely swept up in this, and it's definitely one that if you like westerns, I would recommend. If you're not such a big western person, obviously probably not your jam. After that is a reread. I reread If I Had Your Face by Frances Char because this was my book club pick at my work's book club. This was a really interesting reread because I think this is one of those books where I know people who really hated the ending, but I really like the ending. This follows four perspectives in South Korea, in Seoul. They're just four women who are sort of just going about their lives, and really we're looking a lot at like the damaging beauty standards and how normalised it is, the level of like plastic surgery and exploitation of women and that kind of stuff that just exists. And I think I had forgotten some of the really harrowing aspects of this. Like, this is not a light tale. This gets quite dark. We're really exploring, like, there's, like, violence and exploitation and sexual violence and that kind of thing. So definitely, like, a word of warning there. I think why I really still like this is I love the ending. Without giving you any spoilers, there is an ambiguity to the ending of this, which, for example, someone in my book club really didn't like because they just wanted answers. I really like the ambiguity because I liked that this is kind of, we're following four characters, but really we're just sort of exploring a moment in time, and that there's not always answers for things, and then sometimes things can go either way, things can go well or go badly, and I kind of liked being left with this sense at the end of like, everything can change. Is it going to be for the better or is it going to be for the worse? I don't know. So this was a really interesting reread. I think it definitely reminded me of some aspects that I had forgotten, but I still come out of this liking this book, but I do understand why some people won't get on with it. Next up is some middle grade. This is A Kind of Spark by Elle McNicoll. I knew I was going to love this book because all of BookTube has been loving this book, but I did really love it. We follow Addie. She's an autistic girl who's living in a small village in Scotland, and in her class they start to learn about the witch trials, and they learn about women who were persecuted and wrongfully killed in their very village, and she wants to erect a monument to acknowledge them, to acknowledge culpability as a place, but she comes up with a lot of resistance. What this book is exploring is also all of the prejudice that Addie, as an autistic child, has to deal with, and it's really drawing a parallel. She has such a deep sense of empathy for these women. She can connect to them so intensely, and her desire to not necessarily right the wrongs of the past, because you can't undo what's been done, but to make people acknowledge the wrongs and to at least feel a depth of emotion for what happened. I admire it so much. I think this is such a great book. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. I just think Addie is such a brilliant middle grade protagonist. She feels so, so real. I'm definitely so interested to read more of Elle McNickol's books in the future. I just thought that this was absolutely fantastic. I understand why everyone is singing its praises so highly. Next up is the final revival of Opal and Nev by Dawnie Walton. I read this on my Kindle. I really, really loved this book also. This gets compared to Daisy Jones and the Six a lot because it is a sort of rise and fall of a band narrative told through like oral history, so like interview format. And I understand that as a concept lends itself to being compared to Daisy Jones and the Six quite a lot. These are very different books and they are doing very different things. I thought the final revival of Opal and Nev was absolutely fantastic because it uses this band narrative, but really it's really looking at like the politics of the time. It's looking at what Opal's existence as a black woman was at the time, with all of the tensions in the air during the 70s. It's looking at Nev and his position as a white man who has gained success through a partnership with a black woman, but as this narrative goes on, you begin to question some of his role in this and some of his culpability for events that happen. I thought that this used the oral history format really, really well. I definitely feel like it developed as it went on, and through things that were dredged up from the past and reveals that were given to you, it really develops as a text and it becomes what you think you're exploring at the start, which is just this tale of this band that had this success and then broke up and are potentially reuniting. It really becomes something much bigger than that, and I thought it was extremely well executed and I really, really enjoyed it. And finally, I just wanted to talk about a big beastie. This is Leabhar, A Great Book of Gaelic, which is... who is your editor? Which is edited by Malcolm Maclean and Theo Dorgan. I loved this. This was a 5-star read for me, just because I thought that this was everything that it could have been. Like, it executed its mission so, so well. So it's an exploration of Gaelic writing, and it draws from mainly Irish and Scots writing through time. So you have really, really old, ancient writings in here, all the way up to contemporary poets who are alive and kicking today. But throughout it, the format is that you have so you have your piece of writing in the original language, and then you have the translation, and then they're always accompanied by a work of art, and the work of art is a combination of calligraphy and artwork. This is just one example. This is another one. Just flick through a couple for you. As you can see, like, the art styles, the calligraphy styles are so diverse. This is truly such a collaborative effort. They credit in each one, they credit who the original writer was, who the translator was, who the artist is, who the calligrapher is, who nominated it for this collection, that whole kind of thing. It's really interesting to see names that I'm familiar with in their own right pop up as translators or as artists. I just felt like there is such a breadth of style explored in here. You know, we span this great amount of time, but also stylistically so many different types of poetry are explored as well, with so many different topics. Some of them are extracts. This was just super duper interesting. I just felt like it was unlike anything I've really read before, and I really appreciated how clearly it comes through that this is such a collaboration between lots of extremely talented people. So this was really, really fab. I would definitely recommend it if that sounds like something you're interested in. That's everything I wanted to talk about this week. As per usual, I would love to hear your thoughts from you. Please do leave a comment down below if you fancy it. Otherwise, I will see you next time for something different.